Okay, so we are on to our next interview, and I have with me Nere from Kian Smith, a supply mineral chain in Nigeria. And, we are the AGOA Forum, the private sector forum. As a leader in the industry, when people think of Nigeria, mining, mineral is not what comes to mind. So talk to us about what your company is doing and how that fits into the AGOA program.
So our company is in the, should I say, the mineral exploration and mining space, but also the full value chain. So what this means when we say the full value chain, we are looking to explore the minerals, mine them, but get as much value as we can in the full value chain. Primarily, we're known for gold. So what we've done in Nigeria, we set up the first gold refinery in Nigeria. We've pioneered a lot of initiatives on gold in the value chain. Even Gold West Africa, which is integrating the West African value chain for gold, and wanting to establish, we believe there could be a gold economy in West Africa, especially in Nigeria, because of the market. So that's what we're doing. So, and part of this value chain is we're not just going from, say, mine to gold that we retail, but we've gone as far as tokenizing the gold and having more value as you would get with gold as a financial product. So that's us. Now, other minerals we're also involved in, and this is what has brought us to AGOA, is critical minerals. So tin, lithium, cobalt, copper, those are some minerals that we've also now got involved in. Also working with some state governments in Nigeria that have licenses in these minerals and helping them develop it and come up with a strategy and plan.
That's a lot. No, that must keep you very, very busy. And, mineral is something that the U.S. is very interested in Africa right now. You mentioned copper, you mentioned lithium. Those are all important minerals when we think about batteries, when we think about all the electronics that we use daily. One of the other things that you mentioned to me pre this interview in our conversation is what Zimbabwe is doing with gold regarding money. And that's something that your company is also doing, that the Nigerian government banking sector is also looking at. So talk about that.
Okay. So I guess in the last few years, with the inflation issues with Zimbabwe, debt issues, but rich in mineral resources, especially gold. I think I'll say about 2 years ago, it was 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, they released gold, a gold coin as legal tender, trying to make people buy gold more instead of going to buy the US dollar. This was around the same time that we released SANU. And SANU is, for lack of a better word, it's like digitized, tokenized gold and silver. You can keep it in your wallet, or you could decide to redeem it, you want to pick it up. And we give you places to pick it up. You can pick it up in 3 banks, 3 bank locations, Lagos, Abuja, and Kano in Nigeria, if you want. Some people just keep it liquid. They don't want it physically. Some people ask us to vault it. So anyway, we created this initiative about 2.5 years ago. And now in the last few months, Zimbabwe has gone along the same way now in creating a gold-backed currency. You find the likes of, I think, Uganda talking about it. And now we're talking about this some with Nigeria. Because first of all, one of the things we initiated and pushed was for the Nigerian government to have a gold buying plan for its reserve. We did that about 6-7 years ago. But now this idea now of, I think I'll put this is what SANU does. The issues around gold are how do you liquefy it? How do you take out the hindrances of gold, create gold that has no borders, create gold that is liquid? So these are the issues we solve, and these are the issues that we've been having. So if you look at Africa especially, I would say 80% of African countries have gold, significant gold reserves, commercial. We have all this gold, yet our currencies are usually the worst performing. Inflation wiping away all our currencies. You know what's happening with the Naira, of course, the Zimbabwean dollar. So I would say that right now, the continent, the central banks, we're sitting and we're looking and saying, what's going on here? Why do we I mean, we have all these commodities. Is there anything we could do with these commodities, especially gold, with the way gold prices are going off the roof, to back our currency? So increasingly, our work, what we're doing, we're now in the middle of all these conversations more and more of if we solve this problem of liquefying gold, of making LBMA, that's I'll say the gold as the premium financial instrument, accessible in local African currencies. Those are big doors that have been opened. What does this mean, and how do we maximize the result of this?
That's, I mean, investors, American investors, not just American investors generally, would be very, very interested in this. And as you mentioned regarding AGOA, that might be very significant in regarding trading.
Exactly.
Because you have more, instead of different currency, you have one, something that African leaders have been talking about having a currency similar to EU, and this will be very different, but it will be unique to Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, again, we are at this forum, and the next 3 days, conversation will be had with leaders, with the business sector, as Congress, as the US Congress, look at modernizing AGOA. What does that look like for you? What will you like, once the AGOA is renewed, what will you like the modernized AGOA to look like for your business?
I think what we've already started seeing it. We already, I guess I'll say that there's already the harbinger on critical minerals. We feel like the critical minerals now, what's different for us in Africa is we've learned from oil and many things resources we have that we added no value to. But this time, Zimbabwe, name it, every country in Africa is understanding what they have, the critical minerals, and they want to be a part of the value chain. But I also think it's a great opportunity for AGOA in America because as well, America has strong interest in critical minerals, which we have, and we are just really all discovering what we have. We haven't really gone far in the process. So I see it as a great opportunity for America, AGOA especially, to, like was discussed, not just deal with trade, but also development. Because now this is a case of, okay, how can we be a part of this development and this investment, which ultimately, right, is still going to benefit AGOA, right? Americans, yeah, with the critical minerals they need and all they need for the future green economy.
I mean, as I'm listening to you, one of the things that I could say, like, everyday American or even member of Congress that are not familiar with this might have in mind is like, okay, we know US dollar as the main currency, that this might affect that. Could you talk about the aspects of why they shouldn't worry about your products?
This is the aspect of gold, right? I think what I would say is, in this case, think about trade. All this means now is gold becomes something that everyone somehow will use. It doesn't mean that it affects the dollar, because the dollar is still something that everyone uses. So what you find at the end of the day is similar, like in our case, we can't, I think you heard about, I don't know if you heard about the PAP system with Afrexim. One thing that really locked Africa up or prevented us from trading with ourselves is because how do we trade among the solid currency? Then settlement. As you know, in Africa, FX, most African countries are highly in debt. We need the FX and dollars you get. You don't want to use it for trade among yourselves. You want to use it to balance your own trade and pay off debts. So this is rising, not because there's excess dollar. It's rising because the dollars that we have, the governments have, they're too critical to be used for trade. So if you look at it, this, I'll say, is that gold is filling the gap. If the US dollar was a lot more, I guess, should I say, accessible and in abundance, which means we had, let's say, trade surpluses, that we're exporting more than we're importing, we wouldn't have this issue. So if you look at what's happening in Africa, it's very unique. We're mostly importing. We import more than we export from America and the West, hence this dollar shortage. The issue with bad inflation in our currencies, there's the flights from our currencies, and everybody is running to the US dollar. So I think what I'm trying to say is that hegemony that the US dollar has, it's not going to change because all those countries still need US dollar. You know what I mean? At the end of the day?
Yeah.
Exactly.
To trade. Yeah.
Yeah, so what this is doing, but what gold is doing now is we're using it as a way to enable trade within Africa. Because like I said, we can't get dollars. So, so what I'll say is like, look at it more like this gold is bringing support to the system to enable trade. It can't replace the dollar because you still need the dollar to do all those settlements.
Going back to trading within Africa, one of the program initiatives that have been launched in recent years is the African Continental Trade, Free Trade Agreements. And, leaders are calling for an integration between that trade and AGOA. So talk about how what you're doing integrate into the Continental Free Trade Agreement, and we know how that we integrate into AGOA.
Well, I'm not really sure I can give the details, but I will tell you that you're right on the money. What we are doing is going to smack be what AGOA is looking for, that integration. I would put it this way, that now even American businesses that are trying to figure out how to do business with, say, Botswana, with Ghana, with Lesotho, how do you handle the trade with those currencies? What we're working on now gives that avenue. And within Africa, so like I said, you're right on the ball. This is something that we're working on, we've alluded to, and it's coming soon.
Okay. Going back to your business, there's huge interest from this administration. Actually, and when it comes to Africa, there's been bipartisan interest on the continent. There's also competition with China and Russia. But there's also challenges. Recently was at NATO talking to some leader that see engagement with China and Russia. We see some of the negative effects of their investments on the continent. So looking at trading at this global platform, are you utilizing that? What challenges do you see?
You're talking about utilizing the opportunity of Russia and China?
No, part of your engagement, part of what you're doing is making, not just trading within Africa, but making this global.
Yes.
And in that global space, there's competition. We have these two powerful, the US and China, two of the biggest economic, sort of competing. Africa is the place to be now.
Yeah.
So, using, and with what you're doing, if Africa are using more of the gold to trade within themselves, and you're moving into the global platform, so there are challenges from US, from China. How are you addressing some of that?
I think what I would say is the biggest thing for us, just as I told you, is we're dealing with global Africa, for Africa. We are
global
Africa, for Africa. We are not, like I said, we are trying to solve a problem that we have. We can't trade among ourselves. It's stifling business. Even for us in the gold sector, how do I, if I'm buying gold, buying gold from Mali, buying gold from Zimbabwe, it's a mess. This local currency, trade in our region is painful. Settlement in our region is painful. What we are doing, right, is enabling that environment. So we're so focused on that and that opportunity. I mean, as you can see, it's a Herculean task. It keeps you busy enough. So honestly, we don't really have the time or opportunity to get involved in what's going on between the global giants because we have a giant of a problem on the continent which we're focused on. Now, again, you also have to look at gold supply. So the good thing about gold as well, even LBMA, the LBMA gold, most of the gold that comes from the LBMA refineries is mostly the West. There's no LBMA refinery presently in Russia since the sanctions. I think China maybe has one or two. It's mostly a Western construct. London controls the gold market. So from that regard, I don't think Russia or China in any way is going to suddenly take over the gold market. I think the gold market is controlled by London. Gold is traded in US dollar.
Yeah.
So, and the way I see it is ultimately, these are the people who have a strong stake in gold. If Africa is using a lot more gold, that has to be LBMA. I actually see this as something that long-term benefits the global gold market controlled by London and trading gold, which is usually accessed in US dollar.
Okay. One of the things that you mentioned at the top of this conversation is the lessons learned from the oil.
Yes.
From Nigeria that we see across. Can you share some of those with us?
So, as you can see, for us in Nigeria, we had decades of boom. Beautiful oil, Bonny lights, I mean, wonderful crude oil. But yes, a lot happened in our country and we're doing well, but it never occurred to us. We weren't thinking about the future that the oil would run out. You look at Saudi Arabia, for example. The Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the Gulf countries, they have really built the economy such that now they're not even thinking about oil. Like Saudi Arabia is mining, they think about critical minerals, they've got into the future. That's because they developed their value chain. And they went far in developing the value chain and building an economy that was facilitated by oil, but also allowed them to diversify. The problem for us in Nigeria, I think that Nigeria, one of the leading oil-producing countries decades ago in Africa, is most of that oil, we just sent it out as crude. We were not refining. We didn't really add value. We didn't build even reserves. There's a lot we missed out on. And no blame to anyone outside. This was our own problem. So you'll find out that now other countries like Ghana and people around finding oil are all saying, don't do what Nigeria did. Right? They're thinking, how do we do this differently? But for sure, oil aside, what's happening across Africa is when we're thinking about critical minerals, everyone without exception is thinking about developing the value chain. Not just the raw, the lithium ore. How do you process and get, lithium? How do you, do the cathodes? Go as far as you can, even if you can't do batteries. How far can you go? Eventually, can you encourage assembly, cars to be built there from the battery? So the point is, some countries may have more success down the line of the value chain, but either way, we all now realize we have to do more than just exporting the raw ore.
And that's something your company is currently engaging.
Yeah, that's something exactly. So that's something we're engaging with, as I said, in consulting with the government, our own companies, looking at these strategies for how do we do this? And as well, you have to be conscious. You are a country that needs investment. So you need investment in mining, but you do have goals. So what are the incentives, initiatives? How do you get as much value as you can? Yeah, and also should I say influencing policy in that direction as well.
Well, again, going back to one of the conversations, I'm pivoting a little bit. You're one of the few women in your industry. We were talking about that earlier, STEM industry. Talk about that experience and what has allowed you, because we know it's not easy. Any industry is not easy for women globally. Talk less of STEM in Africa, even though now there's more interest of pushing girls towards that. So, for our audience, women, men that are looking at this, like, I want to do what she's doing.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of your background. What got you interested? And some of the challenges you faced and how you've overcome it.
Well, my experience with as you all say, STEM and being a woman in this sector, you're right, there's not many women. But my experience is a little bit unique. I have to say, so I studied computer engineering. If I look back at my history in college, even when I was working in the semiconductor industry, I guess I got used to, like I say, I got used to the ratios, the statistics. I wasn't even looking at it. And I have to say, the first time and only time I really was shocked to realize that I was one of the few women was in my freshman year of college. And after that, I haven't really paid attention to the statistics of how many women or men are there. It's just kind of been that way. And I have to say, one of the reasons why seeing gender has been hard is, in general, I've had good experience with the men. Once in a while, you've maybe had a man who would say something. But in general, I feel like the men have been very encouraging, very supportive. So I haven't really felt much of that. However, I would say in the last 10 years, culturally, in Nigeria, in the African space, yeah, you've seen more of this gender dynamic. And I would say, I think what has helped was maybe also my background. I had a father who didn't see gender. He pushed all his children like we had no gender. He didn't care. He didn't tell me that there was any limits. So I think what I would say, I definitely would say that men are key. I wouldn't be here where I am if the men I had worked with and had dealt with had not continued to encourage me there. So definitely men are key. I think I would say this for women too. It would be good if I think more women encouraged other women. I know some women have not had good experiences, like we say growing up. Maybe you grew up in a place where you had gender boundaries. Maybe there's some resentment or whatever, but look, if you feel you missed out, don't do the same thing to your daughter. Let her go and break those barriers. So that's what I would say for gender. I really have to say my experience is unique. The men have been champions.
Well, looking back, I mean, that, as you said, that's very, very key. We had a huge youth population on the continent, in Nigeria, for example. So it's key as we develop those young people that we carry on the generation, that we carry on what you're doing. It's important to keep in mind that we need a shift in mindset.
Yes.
We need men to support, we need men to encourage, fathers to encourage their daughters that the sky is the limit for you, rather than, hey, don't go there. Yeah. So I'm gonna, as Nigerian, we are known for our culture, for fashion, for Afrobeats, for everything.
Yes.
That's another key aspect that the administration is looking to move into. Your industry sort of play a part in that. Could you talk about that?
How the mining industry?
No, I mean, with what you're doing with gold is the,
Okay,
we could sort of say is the modern thing now. I mean, Nigeria have already been using
Bitcoin, digital
yeah.
assets. So yes, I would say this, that even Nigeria, the e-naira, we're the first to develop a digital central bank currency in Africa, the e-naira. So yes, the youth definitely are into, and this is part of the idea where we've moved along in the new thing of tokenization, but we've also kept the old. And this is why I said that. I thought about my father, who's very old school, who believed in real estate and everything cash, where to say, okay, all this tokenization stuff, hence why we're like a stable coin. What's the physical backing? Where's the real thing? Can this thing just disappear, poof, like smoke? No. So if you do want gold, we encourage you can go redeem your gold and pick it up in a bank. So I think what we've done is we've bridged the old traditional world with the new world that's useful. And so I think that's how we've done this.
Okay, so as you said, the old people knew about gold, whether it's from Ghana.
Exactly.
They know the value of that.
And they want the physical one.
Yeah, the physical one. And our younger generation, they're more digital and everything. So you sort of create a unique products that benefit both sides as well as the global community.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, a little bit and pivoting a little bit. Tell us about your Nigeria. Everybody know about, as I said, Afrobeats, culture, but tell us about your own Nigeria.
My own Nigeria. I think my own Nigeria is very vibrant. My own Nigeria is amazing. My own Nigeria is a Nigeria that how do I say, you can't blink. You blink, you miss so much. My own Nigeria is just buzzing. Everywhere you look, there's opportunity. So my own Nigeria is full of opportunity. It's full of vibrant people, full of educated people, full of really, how do I say, go-getters. So that's the Nigeria that I see. So that's Nigeria I see. This is Nigeria I look forward to.
Because when people think of Africa, you hear a story about migration, people dying in the Mediterranean. You hear a story in Nigeria in the past about, 411 corruption, all this negative story. But this young generation, people like you, yourself, myself, is a different narrative. And oftentimes it's a story that people outside don't hear that much. They hear about the music, they see the fashion, but the rest of it is still kind of opaque to them. So when we talk about Nigeria, that's why I asked you, because people are like brain drain. That's what people think of Africa. But the Africa that you're talking about is people returning back to the continent, using the knowledge that they've acquired and building something, whether it's out of necessity, just being creative is a fertile creative land.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, music, favorite music?
Ooh, what is my favorite music? I'm trying to think. I don't think I have a favorite. Let me find one. Fela is always good. Fela is always good.
Afrobeat.
Yeah. But otherwise, Ashake is good.
Okay.
The new generation, Ashake is pretty good.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, there's this competition about jollof rice.
Yes,
I
take this competition very seriously. And Nigerian jollof rice is the best.
I can see your accents change quickly.
Yes.
Like I take this very, very seriously.
Take this one very
Nigerian jollof rice is the very best.
The very best.
Yeah. Okay. So I ask people this at the end of our conversation. What gives you hope about Nigeria and about Africa?
What gives me hope about Nigeria, like I say, is I find that despite all that has gone wrong and the opportunities that we've lost, I don't know why God loves Nigeria so much. I find that despite all that's gone, there's still so much left. And then I meet myself in other people who are also building. So what gives me hope about Nigeria is finding the people. You don't have to be many. The people who believe and are building. That gives me hope. The young population, especially that are, I would say, less patient. I think my generation and older in Nigeria, we take everything, the bad. We believe we call it manage it like that. We have this bad management culture in Nigeria where manage what is wrong. It's okay. What gives me hope is that this younger generation in Nigeria is not managing anything. So they will not manage what is wrong, they want it fixed, they don't have time for it, and they're taking the bull by the horns. So for me, that really gives me hope. Seeing a younger population that wants to see things right, and also seeing that there's still so much opportunity left there, that gives me hope. For Africa, similar. I think what is giving me hope about Africa now is saying almost across the continent, we're all now saying the same thing. Where we're looking and we're saying, what's going on here? We're beginning to ask ourselves the right questions. Surely we can add value to what we're producing. Surely we can develop, we can trade among ourselves. We never thought about that for a long time. How do we increase trade among ourselves? How do we, you're seeing countries now working together on infrastructure. I think what I'm saying is, the mindset shift and the awakening that's happened for us in Africa is just what gives me hope. That we're finally now all beginning to look and say, how do we work on this together?
Well, thank you very, very much. This has been a very interesting conversation. I truly appreciate you sitting down with me. One quick question. I know I said that was my last one. In the next 3 days, at the end of this forum, what would you like to see?
We would definitely like to see and hear that the AGOA renewal has happened. If it can happen in the next 3 days, a decision could come out. We would love to see that. We would also love to see that AGOA is also, in addition to trade, looking into investment and development as well. This is what we would love to see.
Okay. Thank you very much. And again, a pleasure sitting down and talking with you. And I hope we will have more conversation as you continue to grow your business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.